All right, folks. It has been quite a busy weekend. And this weekend, I spent a lot of time taking phone calls and on conference calls and text messages and looking at social media. And a lot of folks have been talking about Target, the latest company to announce that they are ending their various DEI initiatives. They joined the likes of Walmart, McDonald's, Lowe's, which actually has a black CEO, Toyota, as I said, McDonald's, and other companies that have made these decisions. But you've had companies that have stood with their DEI initiatives, and in the face of these conservatives like Robbie Starbuck trying to push them to get rid of them. JP Morgan Chase, Delta Airlines, United Airlines, American Airlines, Costco, Apple. So these are the various companies. Amazon has also said they will be pulling back some of their various initiatives. Now, while all of this is happening, African Americans have been responding by saying, what the hell? What's going on? Then, of course, on the federal level, you've got Donald Trump, who is ordering all the federal agencies to get rid of DEI. And so they have made this the linchpin of their week one strategy, and you've seen this happen. You had folks, the Air Force, who decided to pull the teaching the Tuskegee Airmen, and so the conservatives, in their effort to say, oh no, that's not what we meant, so they said, oh no, let's bring that back as if we're going to give you some credit for that. So as a result, this organization called Strike for All, they announced that a boycott of Target beginning February 1st. And so you've seen the social media posts they have been loading, talking about boycott Target. And as a result, people have been saying, that's right, that's the move, that's the way to go, that's what we need to do. This here, when it comes up, this is, one of the posts on social media that they posted, and it says, only by minority owned. And so, only by minority owned. And so what I have been saying is, well, actually, I posted on their Instagram page, I'm curious, you say only by minority owned, but I want to know, are those other minority owners standing with black people when it comes to battling these companies? The people who benefit the most from DEI policies are white women. White women have 70+% of the actual DEI corporate jobs, and white people do. And white women, when it comes to minority contracts on the city, county, state, federal level, they get more contracts than anybody else. So if we're talking about, fighting for minorities and women, I need to know where's the National Organization of Women. I need to know where's the Women's Chamber of Commerce. I need to know where are all these women's organizations that largely serve white women. I need to know where are the Hispanic, Latino organizations. I need to know where the Asian American organizations. Because what I'm tired of black people, the ones who are the loudest fighting for initiatives, and other folks are the greatest beneficiaries. I want to know where are the Indian Americans, where are the Pakistanis, everybody who has been a beneficiary of MWBE programs who is non-black, where you at? Where you at? And so that's critically important for us to say because, again, we are the ones who are constantly having to shoulder the burden, having to do all of the heavy lifting, which I understand because on the federal level last year, Ron Busby, the president and CEO of the U.S. Black Chamber, Inc., he was on last week. And he said on this show that African Americans last year got the highest amount of federal contracts we've ever had, $10 billion a year, but it barely hit 2%. Well, it wasn't even 2%. Yet 78% of all MWBE federal contracts white women get. So where y'all at? So you have this call to boycott Target. And what happened over the weekend was that different companies, different black-owned companies with products in Target was completely blindsided by Target's announcement. Target wasn't even smart enough to notify these black vendors first. And what ended up happening was, show the list, here's some of the black brands right here. What ended up happening was these brands got hit with all sorts of questions from the public, and they were like, yo, what, what the hell? They were blindsided by Target's decision. In fact, Target has made no effort to reach out to black-owned media and others to explain how they're going to continue their programs. What are they going to do to continue to invest in black-owned brands, to put their products on the shelves? And if you if you actually go to Target's website, you'll actually see they're black. You see, they got their Experience Black History Month page up. And then if you go down here, their Buy Black button, and then you see down here, shop all black-owned or founded brands. And when you click that, you will see there, for the results are 1,073. And so if you scroll, you're going to see all of these products from black-owned firms or black-founded firms. And the list goes on and on and on and on and on. And so people started hitting up these owners and criticizing them and questioning them. And you had the sister who is the founder of the Lip Bar. You had Tabitha Brown, who has products that are in Target stores and Amazon and Walmart as well, taking to social media, sharing their thoughts about this. Because there were people who were going to their pages saying, why aren't y'all pulling y'all products? What are y'all doing? Here was a response that Tabitha gave on social media. She made a couple of posts, but here's what she said.
I am in business in multiple ways.
Do you have the Lip Bar?
With Target, with Walmart, and Amazon, right? I sell Donna's Recipe, my hair care products, right, are on Amazon. They're also in Target. And of course, I have a huge partnership with Target. I sell my seasonings at Walmart. I do business all over, just like many other people. And what I can tell you is, if we all decide to boycott and be like, no, we're not spending no money at these organizations. Listen, I get it. And if that's how you feel, honey, I 1000% get it. But so many of us will be affected, and our sales will drop. Our business will be hurt. And if any of you know business, it doesn't just happen overnight where you can just go take all your stuff and pull it off the shelves. There's a process. And then you got to, like, where you going to put it? You got to have a place to store it. That's money, right? You got to have another place to sell it, which is almost impossible sometimes. And even if you sell online, it's a process when it comes to business. And everyone does not have the funds or the means or the availability, the space to house their own products, right? But the thing that concerns me the most, and I want you to hear me and hear me well, if we all decide to stop supporting said businesses and say, you know, I can't buy nothing from there, even the businesses who were affected by the DEI ban, right? What that does is you take all our sales and they dwindle down. And then those companies get to say, oh, your products are not performing. And they can remove them from the shelves and then put their preferred businesses on the shelves. And then what happens to all the businesses who've worked so hard to get where they are? Then what happens, right? Now, I know that something that could solve it is ownership of these big corporations, right? It's a long way to go there. There are amazing companies like the Village Market in Atlanta, right, who support small businesses, and you can go in there and there's some amazing things that you can buy. But it's one store and it's very small. We're talking about mass market. You can't build that overnight.
She said, we're talking about mass market. You can't build that overnight. Tabitha's absolutely correct. And as I said, Melissa with the Lip Bar, she has posted a number of videos on her Instagram page, and she's posted the latest one, talks about selling out. So I want to deal with these black firms first. And I want to try to be as nice about this as I can. If you are on social media and you are calling black-owned companies with products on Target shelves, and you're calling them sellouts and Uncle Toms, and you're questioning why they are not pulling their products, you should shut the hell up. And the reason you should shut the hell up, because you don't know a damn thing about business. Folks, I need y'all to understand something. There are contracts. If they make various decisions, they could be in breach of contract, which means they get sued. They can incur legal expenses. Well, people also don't understand, especially people who have never been in business, who don't know what an EIN is, who have no idea what I'm talking about. What you don't realize is that when you own a business and you begin to place your products, they might start it in 10, 20 stores. Well, they might come back and say, we're not going to place your products in 2, 3, 4, 500 stores. You now have to go out and get capital to be able to acquire that inventory that's needed to sell in those stores. So now all of a sudden, here you are, a small owned business, and you might have, let's just say this book here, or my book White Fear. I might have a print run of 5,000 copies. But then when Target says we want to carry you in 500 stores, I now have to print 25,000 or 50,000 copies. Well, they're not giving that to me on consignment. I got to pay that printing company for the 50,000 copies of that book to be able to ship to Target. And so then I'm shipping the product from the printing company to Target, and I'm not actually putting it in my own warehouse. So if some folks say, well, you need to take your product off the shelves, as Tabitha said, where in the hell am I all of a sudden going to place 50,000 copies of a book? Or where am I going to place pots and pans and seasoning or hair care products? That's the thing I think a lot of us need to shut up and not realize you know nothing about business. So stop making a demand of somebody when you do not understand their business circumstances, because there are people who literally have put their life savings into their companies, and they are now having to navigate this whole deal. And some folks may have taken out second mortgages. And so you're talking about literal bankruptcy, losing it all if they make a rash decision. So that's important for us to state, because I've just heard too much ridiculous stuff about what a black business owner should do with their products if folk are talking about an economic boycott. So let me now move on to the next thing. Anybody who has watched this show, you have heard me often refer to Dr. King's sermon, April 3rd, 1968, at Mason Temple in Memphis. You've heard me talk about economic withdrawal. You've heard me talk about when MLK said in that sermon how we are collectively or individually poor, but collectively wealthy, and how we need to be operating as a collective when it comes to trying to change the economics of our situation. You've heard me quote him in that sermon when he says, we don't have to throw one Molotov cocktail. We don't have to yell and curse anybody out. He said, what we must do is practice economic withdrawal. Companies that don't do business with us and don't hire us, we don't do business with them. In the exact same speech, he also said to black people on that rainy, stormy night in Memphis, how we must be supporting black institutions. He mentions buying from black insurance companies. He mentions how SCLC opened a bank account with a black bank there in Memphis. He talked about how we must be doing a bank-in, a buy-in for black-owned businesses. He literally says it in a sermon. See, part of the problem is most black folk have allowed white folk to frame for us who Dr. King was and is. And so therefore, when we talk about his mountaintop speech, all we talk about are the bottom 2 minutes of that speech and not the other 41 minutes and 16 seconds of the speech. That's why most folks listening right now have no idea what I'm talking about, because you don't even realize that that's what he actually said in that sermon. Because at one point he even references Jesse Jackson. He said, Jesse, what do you call it? Economic. He said, redistribute the pain. He said, so far, the black sanitation workers, they're the ones who have been enduring the pain. Now, if we do an economic withdrawal, we must now redistribute the pain. For all y'all who keep acting like Dr. King wasn't a radical, go listen and read that speech. So when we talk about boycotts, there are a number of things that we have to factor in that too often we don't. One of the things that you heard me say before on this show is that folk immediately yell, boycott! That's their first reaction to something that happened. But there's a problem with that. You have to actually follow a process. I think I probably sold more copies of this book than the author, Martin Depp, who's still alive. I was texting him last night. White pastor in Chicago. He happened to be on the committee. He was on the committee with Reverend Jackson at Operation Breadbasket in Chicago. He was the pastor of a church, and what they did was he was on the committee. Now, when I say he was on the committee, there was a full committee. There was a full committee that dealt with the issues surrounding Breadbasket. They actually met together, and so they laid out the strategies involved in terms of Breadbasket. Now, let me explain Breadbasket. His book is called Operation Breadbasket, an untold story of civil rights in Chicago, 1966 to 1971. This is the book cover. I'm going to be out of the light here, but y'all seen me show before. This is the book cover, okay? I've been talking about this book for more than a decade. Martin Depp writes in the book that there was a 6-point strategy that they employed when it came to Operation Breadbasket. And before I show it, let me also help you. Credit must go to Reverend Leon Sullivan, the legendary pastor in Philadelphia, who actually created this program. He told Dr. King about the program. Dr. King invited Reverend Sullivan to come to Atlanta to present to the Southern Christian Leadership Conference Board of Directors. He did so. They agreed to adopt the program. They renamed it Operation Breadbasket. He put Reverend Jackson in charge of it in Chicago. Now y'all have the history. So Operation Breadbasket had a 6-point strategy. Pull those up. These are the 6 strategies. Number 1 was information gathering. Number 2 was committee evaluation. Number 3 was negotiation and education. Number 4 was economic withdrawal. Number 4, y'all. Number 5 was agreement and covenant. Number 6 was monitoring. Now let me unpack that. First and foremost, when they saw that was an issue, they went to said company and they sent them a letter and said, we need this information. How many black employees do you have? What do you do with black-owned businesses? Do you put any money in black banks? There was a list of things that they asked for. And then the company could either respond to the request or the company could ignore the request. And so if the company responded to the request, then the Operation Breadbasket Committee then evaluated what they got back from the company. And then once they did that, they went through what is called negotiation and education. Now, in negotiation, what they would do is they plotted everything. They would go into the meeting and they would sit here and say, okay, your job is to pray. Your job is to agree with nothing. Your job is to calm him or her down who doesn't agree with everything. And your job is to be the level-headed one. Everybody had a role to play in the meeting. So they would go into the meeting and then the company would either, no, we ain't doing that, or yes, let's move forward. If the company said, yes, let's move forward, they would skip to number 5. They would have an agreement with the company, establish a covenant bond, no different than David and Jonathan, a covenant, okay? Remember when in the Bible where Jonathan told David, anything happens to me, you take care of my family, told him that 3 times. They established a covenant, which meant that word is bond. Covenant was more important than even a signed contract. But they would sign an agreement. And then they would monitor that agreement by checking to make sure the company's doing what they were doing. But pull it up, y'all. Pull it up. Here's why number 3 is so important. The education piece. What they would do is they would go back to their churches and they would be educating the congregation about the company, about what they wanted, how the negotiations are going, how things are. So they were constantly educating them. They were constantly teaching them. And then if the negotiations broke down and they went to economic withdrawal, they would then launch pickets at strategic stores, not all at one time, and then ramp up from there. And the whole point was to keep folk from going into those stores. Now, pull it back up. Look at number 5, agreement, covenant. The outset, the committee established what is it that we want from this company. Come on back to me. If you read this particular book, they laid out in this book that they weren't just interested in the company hiring black employees. They wanted senior level black employees. They wanted entry level black employees, but they also wanted black owned company products on the shelves, shelf space. But I'm not done. They also wanted that store to put money in black owned banks. I'm not done. They also wanted that company to hire black owned companies to do jobs. So if that company had trash pickup or if they had construction or whatever, they wanted black owned companies hired. It was a multi-pronged strategy. That's one of the reasons you saw so many black millionaires come out of Chicago, because Breadbasket was forcing the companies in Chicago to do business with black people. Now, why am I saying this in relation to the call to boycott Target? Here is what I have not heard from any of the people who are yelling, boycott Target. What's the end game? What is it that we're asking Target to do? I get boycott, but what do we want? Are we saying, Target, if you do not recommit to spending $2 billion a year with black businesses, y'all, and that's just not people with the shelves. That's actually everywhere. That's catering companies, limousine companies, black-owned advertising, black-owned media advertising. That's the whole deal, doing business with black people. Target had announced they're going to spend, by 2025, $2 billion. They announced in 2021 that they had got $1.78 billion, but $1.78 billion ain't $2 billion. That's $220 million before you go. So, what's the end game? What is it that we're asking Target or Walmart or Ford or Toyota or any company? What are we asking of them? You don't launch a boycott until you know what you're asking for. You don't launch a boycott until you've educated your audience on what it is that we're actually doing. So now you have to factor in here. Now you have to factor in. See, here's the thing, y'all. I think a lot of people right now are rightfully responding with emotion. King said, you must channel anger into action. An economic boycott cannot be driven by emotion. It must be driven by strategy. That's what has to happen. And it can't just be, we're going to spread the word on social media. There's a whole bunch of people not on social media. So here's the question. If the boycott is going to start at Target on February 1st, have the organizers, and first of all, the question, who is the organizer? So is the organizer, are all the organizers Nina Turner's group? So that I showed y'all that strike for all, that's her group. Or is it somebody else? Like, who is it? Are we organizing picket lines at various stores? Now we also have to factor in that some Target stores have been placed in black communities where there are food deserts. See, I need us to be thinking. There are people who hit me earlier. They said, hey, there's some Target stores that are in rural areas. That's the only place in town. So the question then becomes, how do we properly execute a strategy? Now, here's the deal. And I'll pull this up here. Target, just so we understand something, you got to understand money. Right now, I'm going to pull this up for y'all. This is understanding money. Target's stock price today closed at $142.50. Target's stock price was up 3.34% today. Come back. There's another figure that is important that you need to understand when you talk about corporations. That's the stock price. But then you have something called what is the market cap. This is Target's market cap, $65.3 billion. So Target's stock price is $142.50 as of today, and Target's stock price is $65.3 billion. It's market cap. So if you're talking about an economic boycott specifically of Target, what is your goal? Micro and macro. So just so you understand, when we talk about Target, I'm going to give you some numbers to put this thing in perspective because people don't get it. And I was communicating with several people. I was communicating with accountants. People were sending me data I'm trying to find. And people were emailing me. They were texting me. They were sending me. And one person ran some numbers, but utilizing AI. And here's what they said. 2022, Target did $109 billion in revenue. The black spending power was totaled $1.6 trillion. They said you could approximate that African Americans represent 10% of Target's overall revenue, which is $10.9 billion. This translates roughly to $29.9 million per day in sales from black consumers. Which means if all black people, we know that's not going to happen, but let's just say if all black people boycotted Target for one day, Target would lose $29.9 million in sales. If the boycott lasts 7 days, Target would lose $209 million. If the boycott of Target lasted 30 days, that means the losses for Target could reach $897 million. That's 30 days. That means that if the boycott starts February 1st, companies, publicly traded companies, think in terms of quarterly reports. January, February, March is first quarter. April, May, June, second quarter. July, August, September, third quarter. October, November, December is the fourth quarter. So there are 2 months left in the first quarter. Publicly traded companies announce their earnings report in the second quarter about the first quarter. So it'll be in April or May. So if black folks collectively targeted Target over the next 60 days beginning February 1st, we could cause Target to lose $1.8 billion in sales. That means that stock price of Target, it's going to drop. That market cap, it's going to drop. How many of y'all remember when Snapchat changed their design? Do y'all remember that? Y'all remember when Snapchat did that? Well, a lot of folk forgot how influencers can change the game. Well, I never forgot that. Go to my iPad. Rihanna went on social media and she ripped the changes made to Snapchat, which caused Snapchat to lose $800 million in its stock price. Rihanna by herself, the singer, posted a statement on Instagram eviscerating the app for making light of domestic violence. Y'all, the value of Snapchat went down by $800 million after Rihanna did that. So what then happens? If black folks have a sustained boycott of Target that's ramped up, we could potentially cause Target to lose $500 million to almost $2 billion. And let me tell y'all something. If a company does $10 billion a year in revenue and they lose $1.8 billion, I can guarantee you there will be changes. Ain't no company trying to lose that. Now here's what's crazy. The reason these companies are ending their DEI strategies because white conservatives have been threatening them with economic boycotts. Robbie Starbuck, go on social media. He's been I'm gonna expose these companies for their woke policies, and these companies are freaking out. Target is freaking out because when the evangelicals, when the hard right-wing conservatives went after them for their LGBTQ displays, guess what that did? That caused Target's stock price to go down. It caused their market cap to go down. So Target is sitting here saying, we're going to cave to these anti-DEI folks because y'all ain't gonna do nothing. Y'all ain't gonna do nothing. So now what's happening is now we're left with a situation. There are more than 1,000 products on Target's shelves that are from black-owned or black-founded companies. So do we leave them hanging? There are some people who are suggesting that what we do is we do a buy-in at Target only of black-owned products. That if you go to Target, you only buy black-owned products. Others are suggesting that no, you buy nothing from Target. Those things are happening, and over the next week, we're going to be unpacking these things. But I wanted to walk people through this because I wanted our audience to understand that we cannot play lightly with this, because the fear that I have is what happened when Colin Kaepernick, when they called for, don't go to NFL games, stop watching. It was loose, it wasn't organized, and it fizzled because it was not organized. It was not strategic. Folk made individual actions, but there was no collective action. Also keep in mind, there have been economic boycotts that black people have led since MLK and Operation Breadbasket. Color of Change led an economic boycott where they had advertisers that pulled their ads from Rush Limbaugh's radio show, from Fox News, and from Tucker Carlson's television show. Very effective. I'm wearing this shirt here. Where's our money? The black folks in Cincinnati. People forget. They had some issues with police brutality there, and they led, and the city of Cincinnati was not responding appropriately. The black folks in Cincinnati launched an economic boycott saying, do not come to Cincinnati. Remember, NAACP had a boycott of Mississippi and South Carolina because of that Confederate flag rising. Family reunions, NCAA regional championships, professional sports avoided those states until they brought the Confederate flag down. Those things were done because of collective action. And so what I want us to do, I want us to be not emotional. I want us to take our emotions and channel our emotions into strategic. I want us to do this here. Pull the black businesses up. If you say, I'm sorry, Roland, I am going to make the decision that I am not going to go into a Target, fine, but I need y'all to go to their websites. I need you to buy direct, because here's the thing I need you to understand. If you buy direct, you're actually increasing their profits, because by buying direct, they don't have to share with Target. I talked to one of the black owners last night, and you know what she told me? She said, Roland, during COVID, a lot of people for 3 months bought our product. And what happened was, as business owners, we saw them buying our product. And so what we then did was we went out and we increased our production of the product. She said, but guess what happened? After 3 months, they stopped coming to the website. She said, so here we did. We ramped up our products, anticipating more business over the next 3-6 months. And then it dropped off like a cliff. Why is that important? Because black folk, we love talking about Montgomery. We love talking about the Montgomery bus boycott. But let me remind y'all, the Montgomery bus boycott was supposed to be a one-day boycott that went another 381 days. Let me remind you that the Montgomery bus boycott only happened because 50,000 black people decided that they were not going to get on that damn bus. And it was cold, it was rainy, but they still chose not to do it. And see, y'all gotta understand, it's black conservatives out there laughing at y'all right now. Here's this little child, this little black MAGA girl, went to FAMU, right here, Sharice Lane. Yeah, I'm calling you out. Look at her. Y'all be back at Target by next month. Look at the Pastor Darrell Scott, another Trump MAGA. You mean next week? I've heard some others say it. Y'all ain't gonna do it. It ain't gonna last. This stuff ain't gonna work. It ain't gonna. We heard all that. That will only come true if we do not do what King said, which means operate as a collective. What they have to say will come true if it means that what we do is that we do not have sustained action. What I mean by sustained action is, pull the list back up. What I mean by sustained action is if you wear lipstick, stop buying it from MAC. Stop buying it from Sephora. Actually, go to thelipbar.com. Black Opal. Is it Black Opal? Desiree? I mean, buy Black Opal. If you're looking for wine, Vieri wine. If you say, you know what, I want water, right there. Drink watermelon water. Honey Pot. Now, Bevel was black founded, but it's now owned by Procter & Gamble. But figure out the product that you want to use and then say, I'm going to buy just that product. You like some mambo sauce? Go to shopcapitalcity.com. You want some muffin cakes? Go to littlemuffincakes.com. But what has to happen is we cannot do that once or twice. We have to create a state of mind where we are sustaining the action. The reason economic boycotts have failed is when the people did not continue doing it. We love to talk about, and I'm being very serious right now, we love talking about, man, we got to buy black, man, we got to do a black buy-in, man, we got to support black-owned media. And I can't tell you how many people who called me for favors always talk about, oh man, we got to support black-owned media. Then I call Keenan and say, check their name to see if they name is on the list of donors. Have they even given $1? And the answer is no. So you can't sit out there and talk about, man, look what Target did, and man, we got to boycott. Were you buying any black-owned companies' products? Do you do it on a consistent basis every month, every 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year? This is not a moment to be, man, all this stuff Trump doing, all this stuff the MAGA's doing, all this stuff they doing, man, we gonna have to do what we did during Jim Crow. But what you gonna do? How are you spending your money? How? See, y'all don't. Let me explain something to y'all. I've hired black folks, white folks, Latinos, it don't matter. I've hired folks to do work. But I'm intentional when I'm talking about how do we expand the pie. See, I don't need an official DEI program. Because when you do the right thing, you do the right thing. And when you have people who understand how you operate, that's what you do. I'm just going to tell y'all this here. When we started this show, we had a handful of people. And when it came to our audio, we had 4 technicians, all of them white. And I was like, yo, we got to get some black people. Now, why was I saying that? I wasn't saying that solely for my show. Because I know what happens in Washington, D.C., how when crews are hired, how there are very few African Americans. And it was like, we got to get some other folk in the pipeline to create opportunities. Steve, to his credit, when the other Steve left, Steve took over, Steve said, I'm training some additional folk, including African Americans. I didn't tell him to do it, but he understood how we do this here, what the need was. It's called creating space, creating opportunities. So now when people are looking for audio technicians, we've created a place for people to learn how to do it, and now they can get opportunities. Same thing with being videographers. Same thing with being caterers. Same thing with being event planners. Same thing with being lighting company owners. I'm going on and on and on. The reason DEI programs even exist because corporations were not doing the job in the first place. DEI today is nothing before the mama and daddy of DEI is the Chief Global Diversity Officer. The mama and daddy of the Chief Global Diversity Officer is the Vice President for Community Affairs. That's what they were called in the 70s and 80s. And then it became Chief Diversity Officer, then Global Diversity Officer, then it morphed into DEI. That's what this thing is all about. And see, I am not interested in DEI programs returning where 75% of the people with DEI jobs are, frankly, white women. What I care about, are we going to lose supplier diversity programs, business diversity initiatives that create economic opportunities for black-owned companies to be able to participate in this multi-trillion-dollar economy? So if we're going to be sitting here talking about DEI and we're angry with what Walmart has done and Target and Toyota and Lowe's, what are we wanting to be done? Because there's going to be opportunity. And here's my last point before I go to my panel. You got to ask yourself this here. How did these companies over here, JP Morgan, Apple, Delta, American Airlines, United, Costco, and a couple of, how did these companies say we standing with DEI, but these didn't? I talked to a corporate leader today, and longtime black corporate leader. He said, you know what? He said, Roland, it's the lawyers. It's the lawyers in the room. He said, here's the reality. Quotas have been illegal. See, the Robbie Starbucks and these white conservatives, oh, no. Goals, that's just another phrase for a quota. No, it's not. Every company sets goals. There's not a company in America that does not set goals. There's not a company in America that does not say the kind of growth they want to see in their company year over year. And you know what they do? They set a percentage. It's the same thing. So we cannot allow these corporate lawyers to get skittish and scared and cause them to stand up. But it also requires board of directors to show some guts. Pull up Target's board of directors. The reason Target has rolled back their DI initiatives is because of these people right here. These people right here. Brian Cornell, David Abney, Douglas Baker, George Barrett, Gil Boudreaux, Robert Edwards, Switch, is that it? Donald Krause, Christine Leahy, Monica Lozano, Grace Puma, Derica Rice, Dimitri Stockton, is that it? This is their management team. Katie Boylan, Brett Craig, Kiera Fernandez, who I called today, hard as hell to reach her, couldn't reach her. Michael Fidelki, Rick Gomez, Christina Hennington, is that it? Melissa Creamer, Jim Lee, Gretchen McCarthy, Lisa Rose, Jill Sando, Mark Schindel, keep going. Kara Sylvester, Amy Tu, Pratt Vimena, Matt Zabel. I just showed you the board of directors and the management team. They are the ones who decided to roll back DEI. They need to answer why. How is it you, Target? How is it you, Walmart? How is it you, Toyota, Ford, Lowe's? How is it that y'all don't have the guts to stand up for inclusion, but other companies have? What's the difference? And if y'all want to get rid of the DEI program, but you still say we're committed, Target, to the $2 billion a year to black products, show me how. Folks, what we have to prepare for, and I've been warned, I've been screaming this for years. I've been saying this to civil rights leaders. Stop playing around. This thing is coming. I said in the aftermath of George Floyd's death, that this third reconstruction needs to last at least 20 years. Do not pull your foot off of folks' neck. But I'm going to tell y'all right now, our civil rights organizations, they did because they got too many corporate checks. And they got comfy and they got comfortable. What we need to understand is that MAGA and the right, they want to destroy the entire civil rights infrastructure. And if you destroy the civil rights infrastructure, you destroy the economic infrastructure that black people have been able to build. It is not perfect. It's not where it needs to be. It's not even close to that. But I would rather have what has been constructed than not to have it. And I'm telling y'all right now, if we do not respond with economic withdrawal in a smart, efficient, targeted, strategic manner over the next 4 years, because you got no cover from the federal government, and that's going to now go to the states and now go to the counties, to the city and the school boards, you are destined to see an economic hurricane, tsunami, earthquake ravage black America, because they are going to turn off the access to the contracts. And when they don't carry our products, you can't buy them, and those businesses can't grow and can't scale. And if our black-owned businesses can't grow and can't scale, we can't hire more people. If we can't grow and scale, we can't give our contributions to HBCUs and to churches and to black youth groups and other organizations. And then all of a sudden, if we can't grow and scale, we can't hire people. Those people now can't take care of their families, can't buy homes, can't pay for college tuition. I need everybody watching and listening to me to understand that what we are facing is literally the economic destruction of black America. That is not fear-mongering. That is not me trying to scare you. It is me stating an undeniable fact. And my man John Hope Bryan said the reason he loves math, because he said math doesn't lie. If you begin to freeze us out of the path to economic prosperity through jobs and contracts, there is no place to go. Julian, I want to start with you. You're an economist. Your thoughts on all of this?
Wow. Well, you laid it out very well. I think one of the things that you laid out most importantly is the notion of having organized boycotts. You just can't say, you can't pop up and say, let's boycott X and let's boycott Y, because it isn't going to work. You've got to have your facts straight. You've got to build basically a campaign in the community. This is why we're doing this, y'all. Not just, somebody had an idea. All too often, we've seen boycotts fail. We've seen them fail because the work didn't go into the foundational work. So that book that you lifted up, the Montgomery Bus Boycott, that's a great book. And I would advise people to check it out, mainly because it does do those 6 points. And you really are talking about not engaging, I'm going to boycott, but really looking at why you're boycotting. The other thing right now that I think is interesting is the notion of companies that have merged, and so you have this interlocking thing. You say, I'm going to boycott Coca-Cola, but you go over and drink Dasani water. was the same thing. So we need to know more about corporate structures. I'm glad the sister put her stuff out there about her products and her brilliance in having multi-level platforms. But even with those, if we don't get the access that we need, for contracts, for employment, for other things, we're going to be basically in a rough spot. And as you said, there are all these people who keep saying, they didn't think Trump was going to be that bad. Well, you found out, didn't you? And this is just week one. And nobody is I'm glad you showed the board of Target. You saw the 2 black people and a couple people of color. But, everybody brown ain't down. And all of them are not necessarily affected by withdrawals from DEI. So what we have is a situation where we're living in an era of anti-blackness. The fact that the Department of Defense would even dare attempt to stomp on the legacy of the Tuskegee Airmen speaks to the rent, and then they reverse themselves, of course. But what they're doing is speaking to the rampant disregard for black people in this country. Rampant disregard for black people. And so we have to be prepared. And you have been talking about this for a long time, Roland, as many other people have. John Hope Bryan is great on this issue. There are others who have talked about what we need to do with we have $1 trillion plus economy, black economy. We can be very strategic and we can have people experience pain if we're willing to work in concert. The problem, as you said, the problem is that we don't work in concert as often as we should. I mean, we basically, there not to be that much separation between us in terms of strategy. But you've got this group going over this way, this group going over that way, this one not speaking to that one. That's not an effective way to construct a good economic boycott. We have, years ago, there's a brother down in New Orleans. I forgot his name. He owned a bank, Liberty Bank. And he said, we have everything we need in our community if we just talk to each other. Reverend Willie Barrow used to say, we're not so much divided as we are disconnected. Tell y'all, this is a time to get connected, because what's going on is if you don't get connected, what you're going to end up with is a decimated community. They've done it before. Economic envy is a powerful thing, Roland. They don't want to see us succeed. They want to re-enslave us. So you get rid of many of our historical markers. You get rid of the Department of Education. Why is that connected to the economy? Because then you have a bunch of ignorant people, they haven't been educated, who work for anything. They'll think the minimum wage is a good wage. And so decimating the Department of Education essentially lowers wages implicitly. And that means it weakens communities implicitly. We will need to have to find out what we can do together, and we have to do it together. I'm so happy that you talked about the Montgomery boycott, because it was organized. People met. They had a committee. It wasn't like somebody popped up and said, oh, we go boycott the bus. It was a lot more than that. And we really got to look at what else can we do to ensure the strength of our communities, because trust and believe these folks are, yes, out to get us. Yes, out to get us.
Yep.
Yes, to get us.
Joe.
It's interesting in that I think that the point is well made that we are not as good about the historical knowledge as we need to be. And so without the historical knowledge, the success that there has been with targeted boycotts, et cetera, that were informed boycotts, right? Without those things, you can't be successful as it pertains to a current strategy. So it is really important for us to look both ways before we cross the street. All those years ago in the 80s, when we wanted certain things to happen in terms of movies, things that were getting to Hollywood that Hollywood was making. Back then, I don't know where we are now, but back then black people bought a third of movie tickets. And this is aside from the bootlegs. Now, let's keep it real. So whatever we wanted to happen in Hollywood could have happened if we came together on that. So we have to be very, very strategic, and we have to be wise about what we're doing, why we're doing it, what the end game actually is. The other thing you have to remember, and this is why I think the urgency that you underscore is really important for us to understand and to really get, these companies running away from DEI, and I agree with the whole idea that the DEI thing as a goal in and of itself is a little bit of a misnomer because of who benefits from it, right? But the thing to understand is that these companies are doing something that they're not even legally required to do right now. The Supreme Court hasn't gotten to the point where they've undone DEI programs in corporate America. You know, they're talking about colleges, et cetera, but that's been going on for a while. You can go back to the Bakke case. You can go back and talk about affirmative action for a long time. They are running for the hills, and they don't even have a legal requirement yet to do it. And so that's where our urgency comes from. And without strategy, as it pertains to all of these things, and they all connect, whether you're talking about how you deal with voter suppression, how you deal with economic disempowerment, and how you make your dollars count and work. You know, my mom doesn't do Amazon because she's older. She'll have me do it, or she'll go to Walmart or Target herself, which means that with a lot of our consumers, social media is not going to do it. So you got to be able to be strategic about what we do, why we do it, and what the end game is, because the things that are happening right now are not even legally required to be happening as it pertains to what these corporations are doing. They're not even required yet, but they're scared of something. So let's get to a point where they're just as scared of an economic impact on this end, and then maybe we can start making some progress.
I'm a Congo.
Well, the question is, why are they saying this, right? Because you have the organizations, you know, the Walmarts and the like, and those ownerships who are committed to Trump. But I'm thinking about like a Target, and I'm thinking they didn't even have to announce anything. Kind of going off Joe's point, right? Like they didn't even have to say anything at this particular point. So I don't even know if it's about a scare thing or if these organizations are emboldened to do what they didn't feel like to do what they've wanted to do all along. Dr. King talked about people believe in Black liberation on an installment plan, talked about Reconstruction ending, talked about the civil rights movement, where people say, like, we've given you enough rights and now we're stopping. You talked about coming out of the George Floyd murder, we needed to have a Reconstruction lasting another 20 years or so. And now we see that as closer to like 3, like 2.5 and the like, because of diversity fatigue. This is what we're seeing in these organizations. And so since Trump is emboldened to say stop all DEI, many of them are feeling emboldened to say the same thing. The way that we can be so successful is going back to one of your first points you said, Roland. What other organizations, what other groups of people, non-Black groups, are going to be down with this? Because the fact of the matter is that when you look at it, there are more of us collectively, numbers-wise, than there are MAGA people. You know, MAGA folks can't keep Target running and Toyota running and all of these other organizations and corporations, but collectively we all can. But I feel like these companies are emboldened enough to say that folks are not going to come together. They are not going to stand strong as it relates to demanding DEI. And so we can basically run rampant and do whatever we want. And it is up to us to prove them wrong. When you went on Instagram earlier today and said you were going to be doing this tonight, I put it on my story. I'm like, folks got to tune into this because so many people were just waiting for a plan. When I saw some organizations say we're going to take 90 days and come back with a plan, I'm like, why wasn't there already a plan in place given what Trump was already running on and what's been happening?
Yep.
So I respect you, Roland, for giving us a plan and a blueprint of where we should be going. And it doesn't take us that long to have to do it. So folks out there need to be listening to Roland right now, because not only is the institutional knowledge there, but the resources and the connection to Dr. Malvoz and all of us are there who can help us in this particular time. So thank you, Roland.
Folks, this stuff is real. If you want to understand, and this is, y'all, education is so important, get Martin Depp's book. And I'm telling you, I know I've sold more copies of this man's book than he has. You can see how my book is worn. And the reason this is important because he literally details with the minutia, the actual forms, the data on how they target companies. And one of the things that he said in the book was that the greatest mistake that they made after they had those covenants, they didn't have enough people to monitor them. So what happened is they ended up making deals, but they didn't follow through to make sure they actually got it done. The book is called Operation Breadbasket, an untold story of civil rights in Chicago, 1966 to 1971, by Martin Depp. And that is so important to get that book, because the mistake that I think that we continue to make and see is that people love to comment on speeches and events and things along those lines. And what they don't do is they don't take the time to go in depth and to understand the strategy. They don't take the time to say, okay, how was this constructed? How was this done? How did they do it? Which gives you, frankly, the blueprint to then begin to follow. How did Color of Change do this? How did they get these advertisers to stop advertising on Rush Limbaugh's show? How did he get it? How did they get it done to stop? See, this is what has to happen. We've got to be operating in a constant state of information and education, and that, for me, I think is just our biggest struggle, is that we aren't doing that. And so I want us to do that. I want us to look at the data. I want us to look at how do we do this. I want us to look at how they achieve these things, because it's there. And look, I'm going to tell you, but the onus also has to be on people who are watching. I spent a lot of time trying to educate our people on what was happening in the advertising business, and how Black-owned media was getting screwed out of the money, and how Black-owned media was not able to get the dollars. I mean, look, I laid these things out. And you know what? If I commented on something else that really wasn't that big of a deal, oh, trust me, I would see the likes and everything. But when I was talking about the money, folk were not listening. I reached out, because for me, I'm always looking at the strategy. This is a photo of me and Martin Depp at Rainbow Push when they announced Freddie Haynes. We were going to try to get him on the show. He said, listen, I'll move that fast. So I hit him last night. I want to get him on the show today. So Carol's going to try to work, because I think it's important us to hear from the people. Tomorrow, well, I forgot, one of y'all mentioned Montgomery bus boycott. I'm going to bring in my book of the sister who folks don't give any credit, because I want to explain to people the strategy of the Montgomery bus boycott. Because again, we cannot have folk running around talking about let's boycott Target, boycott these companies, if we don't understand the strategy, how they kept them together, how they planned it, how they organized it. All of that gives us, again, something to learn from today to move forward. And so that's what we're going to be doing all week. And so we're going to reach out to the folks with the strike organization, because I want to ask some questions I want to ask of them. I was talking to a pastor today, and they are organizing something different, where it's going to be, they're not calling it a boycott of Target, but they're calling it something else. So there are multiple things that are happening. But I do believe this. What Dr. King said, I agree with him 100%, when he said we must utilize economic withdrawal when it comes to these companies. And I want all of you who are listening to me to actually take the time, and I want you to go listen to that particular speech. I want you to listen to what he had to say. I want you to read the speech so you can actually hear when he laid this whole thing out. Because I'm telling you, every time I talk about this here, people think I'm crazy, and they go, man, I never heard any of that. And so what we'll do tomorrow is we're going to play that part where he talked about economic withdrawal, and we're going to play the part where Dr. King talked about how we need to have collective action, how we must have unity in order to make it happen. And so that's what we're going to do. And so, y'all, this is why we don't waste our time with gossip and Real Housewives and all that kind of stuff, because there's enough of that mess out there in Black America. This is real. We're talking about billions and billions of dollars. Let me say that again, y'all. The federal government spent last year more than $600 billion on contract and services. Just the federal government. Black people got 10 billion of the 600 billion. In this space alone that we're in, media, almost 400 billion is spent every year on advertising, and black-owned media gets 0.5 to 1%. We can go sector to sector to sector, and we can show you 0.5, 1.5, 2%. It does not mean that we do not have the knowledge, the expertise, the smarts, the intellect. What we have not had is the opportunity to be able to access and show what we can do. And in America, if you want to understand America in a nutshell, only in America can you go from an esteemed, retired, 4-star general who was the Secretary of Defense to a Fox News host who's a white guy. That's America. And that's what we up against. Where they call the black guy 4 stars, led troops in command, a DEI hire, what they call an accused drunkard, a great choice. That is America. That is America. Joe, Julian Omokongo, I appreciate it. Thank you so very much. Folks, the work that we do is critically important. Your support is critically important for us to continue doing the work that we do. All of this costs money. All of this, the ability for us to travel around the country costs money as well. And so when you donate to this show, you are helping to propel a black-owned media news and information network that, again, nobody else is doing. What I have just laid out for you in the last 1 hour and 15 minutes, you're not seeing this at Essence, Black Enterprise. You're not seeing it at Blavity. You're not seeing, matter of fact, I found out over the weekend that Byron Allen shut down the Griot network. They shut their app down. The linear network, it was dead as of January 1st, 2025. So the Griot sure as hell not doing it. It's us. It's us. You ain't having this conversation on Revolt. You ain't having this conversation on the Black Target Network like Aspire and Bounce. It's us. And in order for us to keep doing what we do, we got to fund us. Support the work that we do. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. You heard what we just talked about there. Folks, I can't reiterate this enough. Listen to me clearly. I cannot reiterate this enough. When you've got technology companies running scared, when you've got legacy media not doing their job, when you've got black-owned media that is disintegrated, now is more than ever for us to have independent media that cares about the truth, that is willing to say what needs to be said. So when you support Roland Martin Unfiltered, this show, when you support the Black Star Network, you're not just supporting me, you're supporting the other shows. Our goal is to add 2 more shows this year. We want additional shows. We want more weekly and daily shows because we want to be able to speak truth to power. We want to be able to say what is necessary where other people are scared. And when you are scared, when you're looking over your shoulder, oh my God, that advertising contract is not going to come in. Well, guess what? A lot of these major ad agencies, they're not even supporting us anyway. You know, in 6 years of doing this show, Group M hasn't done a damn thing with us. Publicis hasn't done anything with us. You've got Horizon, you've got all of these folks, they haven't done jack. And so we are calling it like we see it, and we're speaking truth. And unlike some of these other so-called progressives and people who believe in truth, I'm not running around trying to kiss MAGA ass and kiss Trump's ass. I won't be going to Mar-a-Lago, not for a damn thing. And so this is about us being able to speak truth. So when you support this show and this network with your resources, that is exactly what is happening, because we are trying to build something that is bigger and broader, and actually it has the courage to say what needs to be said, even when it makes other folk uncomfortable. If you want to contribute giving Cash App, use the Stripe QR code. This is it right here. And if you are listening, simply go to blackstarnetwork.com to check it out. Also, if you want to see your checking money order, some of y'all old school, we understand that. See your checking money order to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 2003 7-0196. PayPal, R. Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. And again, folks, we've got some 4 million social media followers. If only 20,000 of our fans contribute at least $50 each, which comes out to $4.19 a month, 13 cents a day, that's $1 million. It allows us to be able to continue to build, to add these shows and do the work that's required. So your support is needed. So please join our Bring the Funk fan club today. If you've not already joined, if you have given to us in the past, please renew your commitment, because it's important that we support Black-owned media, because Black-owned media matters.